Wheat berries are a staple item to have in your pantry, whether for short term or long term. If stored properly, it can last almost indefinitely. In a previous video, I made a whole wheat hot breakfast cereal. In this video, I make flour. Hi everyone, welcome to the Burnt Brass Homestead channel. If you haven't already done so, consider watching my Starting a Food Pantry for Beginners playlist, where I provide information on how to start a long-term food pantry on a budget. Here, I use 5 different kitchen gadgets to grind wheat berries. Some of these gadgets are more expensive than others, but this video proves you do not need to spend a lot of money on a grind or a mill. The pestle and mortar and the coffee bean grinder are by far the cheapest items I'll be using to grind the wheat berries. You can get both of these items for under $35. And I also have a food processor, which a lot of people already have in their kitchen, and they are relatively inexpensive and can be purchased for as little as $50 for a small one, and as much as $175 for a larger 9-cup capacity. And finally, the Vitamix Dry Ingredient Blender and the WonderMill Junior are the most expensive items, both costing over $300. A total of 2 cups of white wheat berries will be milled. First up is the WonderMill. I am using about a half a cup of wheat berries. I absolutely love this mill. It allows you to adjust the stone plates to get a fine or coarse grind. There may be times when you want to make flour, and there may be times when you want to make something like cream of wheat. The adjustment features allow you to do just that. You can also use the metal plates to grind peanuts, making peanut butter, and various nuts to make nut butters. It does not take much strength to use this grinder. If the grains are a bit hard, you can set the plates to start with a coarse grind, then run it through the hopper again to make it a finer product. A 6-year-old boy was able to use this grinder. Granted, he had to use both hands. I got this manual grinder in the event we lost power for a long duration of time. In such an event, I still want to be able to make breads and pastries. For those of you who are dreading the idea of using a hand crank tool to make flour, especially on a daily basis, this WonderMill comes with a sprocket that can be attached to a motor if you have electricity, or a bike, thus making it easy to mill the wheat berries. Let me know in the comments section if you want me to do a full review of the WonderMill Junior. In any event, it took less than 5 minutes to get the texture of flour I was going for. Here are the results of putting the wheat berries through the WonderMill grinder 3 or 4 times. I could have done this in less time if I had gotten the adjustments right from the beginning. I don't use this grinder all the time, since the electrical gadgets can produce the same results with just a push of a button. But it is most definitely useful in the event of a power outage in my area. Next up is the Vitamix Dry Ingredient Blender. The blades on the wet container and the dry container of the Vitamix blenders are different. This here is the dry container. A regular blender may work as well with some sifting, but this blender does a wonderful job at pulverizing anything. I use this blender to make powdered sugar, breadcrumbs, and to grind wheat berries. It took about 4 minutes to grind the wheat berries to the very fine powdery consistency. Next we have the Mr. Coffee grinder. This grinder is over 10 years old. I originally bought it to grind spices. It was never used to grind coffee. In addition to grinding spices, I have used this grinder to grind sugar to make powdered sugar, as well as stale or toasted bread to make breadcrumbs. Now, to add to that list, I use it to make flour. This grinder cost less than $15 when I bought it. You can still get one for under $20 even today. And for the cost, this gadget does really well at grinding wheat berries. Next up is the food processor. This kitchen gadget already exists in a lot of kitchens. They cost anywhere between $60 and $169 depending on the capacity of the container and the name brand. This kitchen gadget is good for chopping, not necessarily grinding. Even on the highest setting, the wheat berry just kept spinning with the blade. Here I try to show you why the food processor is not good for grinding wheat berries. You can see there's a gap between the blade and the bottom of the container. And unlike a blender, the blades on the food processor are horizontal and far apart. Perhaps if your food processor has a blade that sits a little lower, you would get better results, but not with the KitchenAid. And last to be demonstrated is the Mortar and Pestle. This item is great for mixing herbs and spices. The surface inside the bowl is uneven, which allows friction to grind the herbs and spices. And obviously the stone itself, being a hard surface, also allows the herbs and spices to be crushed. But I am not too keen on using it as a grinder to grind wheat berries or any other hard kernel. It isn't fun, and it took a lot of energy. And imagine doing this to prepare flour to make bread for 4 or more people on a daily basis. Not fun at all. After 10 minutes of crushing and grinding these wheat berries by hand, I was done. Wheat berries are so diverse. You can plant them, sprout them, you can cook them whole as a hot breakfast cereal or to be added to soups or salads for more nutrients. They can be ground coarse to make cream of wheat. They can be ground finer to make pizza dough, breads, or pastries. They are just so diverse. When milling your own flour, you get the full nutritional value of the whole grain. This includes the bran, which is the outer layer, the germ, which is the seed, and the endosperm, which is the middle layer. Home mill and store-bought flour are different because the commercial brands strip most of the nutrients out during the milling process. And you do not get all of the wheat berry parts as mentioned before, the bran, the germ, the endosperm. After stripping out most of the nutrients, some nutrients are added back to the flour towards the end of the process. Again, freshly milled flour or wheat berries at home, you get the full wheat berry. Freshly milled grains not only smells wonderful, but also has a better, sweet, full flavor taste than that of store-bought. And it's healthier because nothing is pulled out. You could sift your flour after grinding it to get it closer to all-purpose store-bought. Instead of doing this, I prepare my pizza dough or bread dough and let it ferment or sit a few days before I bake it. Here are the results of each of the kitchen gadgets. As you can see, you do not need an expensive device to mill wheat berries or any other kernel. The cheapest product, which was the Mr. Coffee, performed just as well as the 2 most expensive tools, that being the Vitamix Blender and the WonderMill Junior hand mill. However, I am not sure how long the Mr. Coffee grinder would last grinding wheat berries day in and day out, so having backups would be a wise choice. I explained why the food processor was not a good choice. The blades are just too high, and the fact that they're horizontal just doesn't work to grind the wheat berries. In regards to the mortar and pestle, it could work. It just requires a lot of time and energy to get the same results. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and found it useful. Please consider subscribing to my channel to help it to grow.